Hi, my name is Brogán. My brother Jordan Devlin is one of the Filton 23. He's been in prison for a year now. He's been in prison without trial. He's held currently in Wandsworth Prison.
Because of the way that the government and the state and the laws work, they very much have charged or seen your brother as a terrorist. But from your perspective, as his sister, somebody who's known him all the days of his life, what's that like? Or how do you see your brother?
Yeah, I see him, I'm so proud of him. I see him as someone with a conscience, someone with a very beautiful soul, and someone who cares deeply for others. He's so much more than this label. This is such a dangerous label to give anyone, and such an unjustified label. But he's a sculptor, he's an artist, he's a musician, he had so much going for him. Like, I think, people think that people who protest this have nothing to do, or they don't have careers or whatever. But these people, the 23 of them, all had careers, children, there's teachers. There's such a range of people that just acted on courage and passion and empathy. And I've been through such a range of emotions. Like, at the start, I remember when we eventually heard, because at the start they were held for 2 weeks without communication to anyone. And when we finally heard, I was like, oh, he'll be out in a few weeks. This is they've obviously made a mistake. This couldn't be correct, and they'll figure it out. And now I'm furious. I'm so full of anger at the system. They are abusing the Terrorism Act. They have been abusing it for years, as we know, with the Irish community and the Muslim community. And now they're abusing it for protesters, and they're using these 23 people as a litmus test for democracy, to test how much they can get away with. And it's really sick to me to see someone that I love being used as a test by the British government, to see how much greed they can get away with, how many of our rights they can take away. And it affects everyone. This affects everyone in the UK civil rights. Whether you're for Palestine or not, it will come to affect you at some point. It's affecting protesters, and that will come to affect you at some point. It really does affect everyone.
When the government talks about terrorism, it's talking about terrorism in terms of harm. And we're in Manchester, and not too far from here, there was terrorist attacks at an Ariana Grande concert a couple of weeks ago. We were commemorating the loss of people in the 7/7 bombings, and those were people who had an intent, if you like, to harm for political ends. Jordan, from your description, and the Filton 23 writ large, are people who say that their intent is not to harm, it is for something else. What is their intent?
Their intent is to literally prevent terrorism from happening. Their intent is to disable weapons that cause violence. They're doing the complete opposite of what they're being accused of doing. They are trying to stop a genocide, trying to stop violence. So it's really insane that this act is being used against them. It also, I think, is so disrespectful to people, the families of actual bombings and actual terrorism. And it's dangerous. It's so dangerous because it's watering down the word terrorist. That doesn't carry the same gravity anymore. And so the British government are actually causing harm to public safety by just abusing this Terrorism Act, really. But yeah, the fact that they're being labelled as terrorists for trying to stop terrorism is unbelievable. It just feels so surreal and dystopian, and I just think that we really cannot allow the government to get away with this, because if they do, they will continue to abuse the Terrorism Act. They will continue to use their powers for evil.
And you were telling me about your Irish roots.
Yes.
If we just explore that for a second, what it means to be Irish in the context of what's happening in Palestine, what it means to be Irish and to have yourself and your family feel under the rubric of police who perhaps see you, your brother, others as as terrorists. And there's, is there trauma there? Is there histories of people who faced occupation and violence from Britain before? What are the links to you, do you think, in your Irish identity?
Yeah, I think like I really have a deep understanding of everything because of my upbringing in Ireland, especially like because I'm from the north, and like I grew up, there was very much an us and them culture, and them being the British settlers in the north, like, and we were very much a minority, like Catholic people. I grew up Catholic, and so we couldn't even vote in the 70s. Like, we didn't have civil rights in our own country in the 70s, because that's what colonialism and like occupation does. And so even years later, like, it has an after effect. And so I grew up in a very segregated part of Ireland where you wouldn't mix, and you would go to different schools and live in different areas, and you were very much aware that you are the lesser person, or people made you aware of that. People, when I would wear my school uniform, as a Catholic school uniform, people would spit at me. Like, people were murdered in my town just for being Catholic. And that's like very recent. That was like while I was still growing up. And also, just the limited understanding that British people have of that. Like, when I moved here, everyone was like, just had no education of what that's like. Because obviously the British don't teach it on purpose. And so when, British people grow up with like an unawareness of that, it just allows for that to breed and for them to continue to get away with everything that they do.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting one there, because when I think of the way the British curriculum is taught, especially before, say, college or sixth form, the Troubles isn't really there. No. There's maybe something on the transatlantic slave trade. Maybe maybe just a little bit. And even if it will be on something like the transatlantic slave trade, it'll be because they also see themselves not just as conqueror, but as liberator too. And they don't have that same historical story with Ireland. But in a guess, like in a strange way, you and Keir Starmer have something in common. In that he very much, in his run to be Labour leader and his run before the July 2024 general election, ran on his credentials as a human rights lawyer, and also as somebody who worked with the police in Northern Ireland to make it more inclusive and the like. And he sees himself, if you like, as being part of a human rights tradition. And yet at the same time, here we are in the present day where he's pushing for the kind of policies and legislation and the application of legislation. The Terrorism Act 2000 is from a different time, a different era, the war on terror in that period. And yet it's being applied in the present to, sons and daughters of Ireland. Is that ironic? How do you think it matters that Keir Starmer sees himself personally in one way and acts in another way, and that people across the country perhaps say that they're sympathetic in many ways with what's happening in Ireland or what's happening in Palestine or what's happening to people like your brother, but their actions say something very different?
Yeah, I mean, actions definitely speak louder than words, and like, he's just such a walking contradiction, because nothing he says has any meaning anymore, because he is literally fueling the arms trade. The justice system in the UK has been sold for the arms trade. He's clearly shown us that he's prioritizing foreign interference over his own citizens. He's really prioritizing Israel over his own citizens. And he's continued to do that. He showed us time and time again. And so we need to hold these people accountable. We really need to like come together. There's power in numbers, power in people, and we just need to let them know that they can't get away with this. And that we're watching them, and that we see all the foreign interference that's happening with Israel. There's so much of it in these cases. It's a complete conflict of interest. Yeah.
I think, that's quite important. If we're talking about numbers then, of course, previously it was free the Filton 18, and now it's free the Filton 23.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So initially we've had multiple rebrands. Initially it was free the Filton 10. So 6 pro-Palestine protesters were arrested at the Filton site in Bristol.
Tell us about the Filton site.
So the Filton site in Bristol, that is where those drones are made. I think, I don't have the exact number, but it's something like 80% of the drones used against Palestinians are created by Elbit Systems. And so they create them here on UK soil, and the 6 of them went in and destroyed these quadcopters, these drones.
Tell us about quadcopters again. Yes.
So they destroyed these drones, which are used and battle tested on Palestinians. They're used to play sounds of children crying to lure people out to help in order to kill them. They also detect heartbeats. So whenever a bomb hits, they will make sure that everyone is dead, essentially. They're creations of pure evil. And so the Filton 6 were arrested on site, and then shortly after, a few days later, 4 people were arrested in connection. And they are also held on remand. And then in November, 12 homes were violently raided at 4 or 6 in the morning. They absolutely destroyed these people's homes. The police are complete thugs in this case. Like, they've destroyed people's homes, broken their property.
I think I read something about somebody's urn or something.
Yeah, it's they literally, they're just behaving like complete thugs in these cases, smashing windows, just complete unjustified use of force. There's like complete squad riot teams going into people's houses and at 6 in the morning for essentially peaceful protesters. And yeah, just tearing families apart at the same time. Like, it's really heartbreaking to watch. And they have, they still haven't produced any evidence on these people. They're holding them on remand, in prison without trial. All of these people make the conditions for bail. There's no reason to hold them. They just want protesters off the street. They don't want people to be exposing the British government do not want these protesters who are exposing what they are doing, the war crimes that they are involved in. Like, the British government is so complicit in fact, they're an active participant in this genocide. And so these protesters are exposing them for what they're doing. So yeah, then we were the Filton 18 from November. And then recently, Palestine Action was prescribed, and then...
Tell us about that for a second. If we
yeah.
You got to be careful as well.
I have to be super careful post-prescription. I'm not allowed to say that I'm proud of what they did. I'm not allowed to say certain things. The effects of the prescription are insane. They, as we've seen on the news, are arresting 80-year-old priests for holding a sign, which I cannot repeat the words because, but yeah, it's unprecedented times. Like, it's insane. And then so a few weeks later, then they arrested 5 more people in connection to the Filton case, which at this point is just very worrying that they can take people, snatch people from their homes with no reason, because the Terrorism Act allows them to do so. It's a very wide open act as well, and they've already been told by the UN that it's way too wide, and that they need to change it. That was years ago they were told they needed to change it. and it's not fit for purpose. They were told that by the UN as well. And they have done nothing about it because it allows them to continue to abuse it.
Mm. Mm. And I guess one of the chilling effects is the one that it has on language. And obviously, if it's your brother and it's somebody you've known all your life and you love and you care about them, how odd is it that the government can now set the parameters about how you can talk about your relationship with somebody that you love?
Yeah, I think a lot of people did see the UK as somewhere where we had freedom of speech or, you know, at least democracy. And now I can't even say that I am proud of him. Like my language, the way I speak has now been policed in a way that I could have never imagined, and it's created this sense of paranoia that I've never imagined because I have to second guess everything I'm saying. I have to say, oh, can I say that now? And it's not that anything I'm saying is wrong, and if it's just this, again, abuse of the Terrorism Act that allows the police to arrest anyone that steps out of line, that anyone that wants to speak about Palestine and that wants to expose the British government for their complicity in genocide. It's so open that it allows them to do that.
Mm. And then I suppose if we zoom out for a second, these weapons have killed at least, I think, 57,000 Palestinians officially. There's reports in The Lancet and other journals that suggest the death toll is a lot higher. We're talking about over 17,000 children, over 90% of the residential buildings being destroyed. We're talking about conditions of famine, malnutrition on 1/5 of the population. People forget that the population of Gaza, almost 50% of whom are under the age of 18. And we also know that the UK government receives a good deal of its weapons from both the United States and the Israeli government too. So if you were to take it at face value, why do you think there's all this infrastructure, all this legal and financial effort, all to keep, if you like, what you described as a loving but perfectly normal human being who is good at sculpting and art and is a creative person and a caring person and an empathetic person? Why is there so much effort to try and stop, if you like, some people like that, to stop an 83-year-old reverend, or to stop people who are not necessarily able to, they don't have guns, they don't have yachts or private jets, they are not close with MPs in Parliament? Why so much effort?
I think it's very much the profit that the UK government make from this genocide. They have so much interest in the arms trade because of how much profit they make from it. And yeah, they do not care for Palestinians at the end of the day. They are very much in Israel's pocket, and they're not even hiding that. And yeah, we're just seeing awful numbers of Palestinians being murdered through this. And something that the Filton 23 always say is to liberate them, is to liberate Palestine. So, anyone who wants to liberate them or do something for them, or to liberate themselves even, just to liberate Palestine and keep talking about Palestine and keep talking about what's happening, and keep acting and keep showing up.
And for you personally, how do you see this ending? If you were to paint a vision of the future with you and your brother in it, that can put a smile on your face.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see my brother free. I'd love to see all of them free. I'd love to see Palestine free. I won't stop fighting. Like, I think there's some weird beauty in all of this, in that we've created a community with all of the other families, and we all get strength from each other, and we're all fighting for not only the 23 of them, not only for the rights of people in the UK, but also for Palestine as well, of course. And yeah, we as a community hold each other, And yeah, we're doing everything we can to set them free, and also to keep Palestine at the forefront of all of this as well. We always need to remember why they did this, and yeah, it's simply put to stop the murder of Palestinians. Yeah.
So there was a 3-year-old who was shot at a checkpoint. Her name was Rakaya. You had a girl, Hinra Job, who hadn't even started life yet, and her car was shot with 355 bullets. You've had doctors who've been kidnapped, even from the perspective of Israeli hostages. You have their own government that has continued to impose siege-like conditions on them and Palestinians. And so your brother saw all of this. You've seen all of this. We all keep seeing it every day. And there's a gap, of course, between words and actions and sentiment and feeling and what people do. And, well, you don't need to encourage anybody for legal reasons, but what is it that you would like to see people do with the information that they now hold, that they see on a day-to-day basis?
I think continue to show up for Palestine, do everything that you can, write to your MP. You can sign our petition as well. Yeah, just, God, it is so hard to talk about it now without being, without saying something that I could get in trouble for. I actually don't know a nice way to say that without saying that.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
So, in talking about your brother, does he have anything that he'd like to put out into the world?
Yes. So, Jordan said, the risk of months in prison pales in comparison to the despair suffered from witnessing the horrors Elbit Systems facilitate. The sense of wrong and right is black and white in this instance. So I am honoured to take this opportunity in crafting a world I want to live in, to destroy completely the blatant evils in society we've all been lulled into ignoring.
That's beautiful. Before, off camera, we were talking about the way in which the prison system in the UK is, it's filled to the brim. Now you have people on, short-term release. You still have a government that's very much interested in building more prison places and putting more people in prison, the highest prison population per capita in Western Europe. And your brother is now amongst that. Now, your brother, from his perspective, is a non-violent agitator, somebody who used what Martin Luther King Jr. described as civil disobedience in service of greater ideals, love for human beings, for Palestinians, catching hell on earth, as the UN Secretary General put it. So in that way, are you worried about ways in which your brother could become institutionalized, ways in which he could even become radicalized? A problem in prisons in the UK is people go in with non-violent offences and they're exposed to, say they're in Belmarsh prison or they're in HMP Manchester, they could be exposed to people who are far more on a trajectory where they've become hardened in their outlook and also in their behaviour.
Yeah, absolutely. Jordan and the others, they should not be in there. They're in there with extremely violent people. They're in the highest security prison, so they're in there with hardened criminals. And it's a year on and I'm starting to see Jordan have this sort of Stockholm syndrome. He obviously, survival instincts, you need to sort of relax and get into your space, but he's now, even when he's allowed out of his cell, when you're locked up 23.5 hours a day, like, and then they're like, okay, you can have half, he doesn't even want to leave for that half an hour, which is very worrying. For instance, like, as well, when they call you for like the gym, if you're not up and ready to go, they will just leave without you. There's a lot of situations that are in the prison that just it's not a life. And so yeah, it's really worrying to know what he will be like, and how all these people who are non-violent offenders and who have no criminal past, what they're going to be like when they get out of prison. And also a worry that we have in him returning to the north of Ireland is when he returns and has this label of terrorism looming over him, how he's going to integrate back into society, because people just hear that label and they just jump to conclusions and they won't ask questions. And in Northern Ireland specifically, that is a very dangerous thing, and he could potentially be beaten up or even worse, murdered for something like that, which, yeah, just causes a lot of distress for us as a family.
Mm. When you think about the ways in which somebody's life will be impacted with that label going forward, he's artistic and creative, the ability to, go and display work in galleries or get funds or get grants or even work a normal 9 to 5, all of that is impacted now. What might people not understand about the way in which that label has so much force and can just transform somebody's life or turn it upside down?
Absolutely. Like, moving forward with their lives is going to be so much more difficult because employers don't look into it. They just see a criminal label, and that they've been to prison and assume the worst. People don't have time in their busy lives to ask questions about things like that. Yeah, it's just that label carries so much with it. And Jordan, as like a creative person, being in a space, he's also neurodivergent. He has ADHD, and he's constantly used to being able to do things and being stimulated. And we appealed to the government, the governor, and the governor agreed that he could have a musical instrument in. We ordered a guitar for him, and he got there, and they rejected it. They have things in the prison that's supposed to motivate them, like art projects. He created an art project. He's like a carpenter, and he does everything with like recycled goods. And so he created this art sculpture with things just around his cell. And the guards came in and just took it away and were like, you can't have this. But he literally created it with everything that was already in his cell. They don't want them to have any creative expression in there. He can't even get a job. Before he moved to prison, he was allowed a job, and it was painting, and that, like, I really seen that lift his spirits, and he was doing a lot better when he had that. And obviously they're not paid much as prisoners. I think it's like as little as £2 a day or something. But they do it to survive, just to get on with their day and have something to do with their day. And then they took that away from them when they moved to prison. He's not allowed to join the debate club. It's too risky. Just all of these things are so demotivating. The prison system is so broken that, how would you expect anyone who's been through that to come out and live a normal life after that and integrate back into society? It just isn't, they're set up for failure from the start in that situation.
We spoke briefly about your hometown, and I think scenes recently of an effigy of, I think it was a depiction of asylum seekers on a small boat being burned. I think some sort of visage or imagery related to kneecap as well, the Irish language rap trio being burned too. And, we're living in a time where you're seeing a hardening of people's hearts against people who maybe look differently to them or sound differently or love differently or speak a different language or worship a different God. And of course, your brother saw that, but he went a different way. And so when you see that violence, both at home, if you like, and also abroad, Palestinians in Gaza too, how do you think you're able to continue to use your voice despite being on the receipt, or despite witnessing that, that might steal hope for some people to see what Wilfred Owen, I think, or another author described as man's inhumanity to man. How does one combat that?
I think we all have the opportunity to choose love and hate, and he acted out of love, and the system is treating him out of hate, and we all have that ability to choose that. And so I think each person, you know, we all have the knowledge at our fingertips to explore that. And I think maybe not everyone has explored that yet. And there's still time to do that. Like, I think with Palestine, like if people still haven't spoken out about it, there's still time for you to do that and to use for people to learn more and to act out of love more.
Has arresting the Filton 23 worked?
No. You can't arrest us all, and we'll continue to fight for them. We'll continue to fight for Palestine. There's not even enough space logistically to arrest us all, but also you cannot silence us all. And we won't let you, and we will not let you. We'll continue fighting. So no, it hasn't worked, and it won't work. Yeah.
So as our interview draws to a close, it's been wonderful to speak with you, Brogán. And if you had anything that you want to say, anything that you want to say on behalf of your brother, anything that you want to say to your brother once he's released, what would that be?
I think what I want to say is to the public, we have 23 pro-Palestine activists currently serving time in UK prisons for non-violent offences, and the government is abusing the Terrorism Act to hold them there. All of these people should be on bail, and this should be very worrying for all of us. You should be concerned about this and for the future of your rights and the future of our democracy. And we all have a voice, so we should use it now. Really, we need to speak out now. There's still time to do something about this. You can do something about this by writing to your MP, talking about it, showing up to events. We have an event on the 16th of August where we will have our 1-year anniversary of our family being imprisoned without trial. Show up for them there, show up for them in whatever way you can, and just challenge this abuse of law wherever and whenever you can.